What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Good Wolf Project. I'm your host, Jerry Scarlato, and today's episode is Coach Talk. I've not done a Coach Talk episode in a long time, so I am super excited to bring it back. For those of you who have not been around for at least 6 months, because I think it's been that long since I've done a Coach Talk, the format of the episode is a Q&A between another coach and myself. The coach that we have today is Noah Sharpe from Noah Sharpe Fitness. Noah has been on the podcast previously in the last couple of months. And today we talk about a wide range of topics, from how you can put on muscle and keep cardio in your routine at the same time. Because, a lot of people want to be able to add some muscle to their body, but they also know that it's important to keep their cardiovascular fitness up. We also talk about how you can go out to eat and travel and make good choices. Business people especially have this problem because there's a lot of business people who travel regularly or go out to eat for, business meetings regularly. So how you can start making better decisions there. We of course also talk about how you can make better decisions on vacation, you know, in general. And then one of the final things we talk about is the difference between in-person and online personal training. This has been an interesting transition for myself. I've been an in-person coach for the previous 15 years of my life. In the last 6 months, I transitioned online. So I'm learning myself the difference between the two. In person has a lot of benefits. Online actually has a lot of benefits as well. So if you're contemplating either of the two, we give some very in-depth answers on that. If you ever have any questions that you want answered on any future Coach Talk episodes, you can send your questions to contact@goodwolfproject.us, and we'll make sure to get your question on the show. Also, make sure you hit that pause button and go rate or review the podcast. You can give us up to a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple. Remember, when you do that, you are helping other people find the show, and therefore you are directly helping spread the message and directly helping other people. So definitely pat yourself on the back for giving us a review, and we greatly appreciate it. Now, get that pen and paper out and take some notes on this episode of Coach Talk with Noah Sharpe. Noah, great to have you back on, girl. Always good to see that smile.
It was good to see you, bro. Love to be back.
So we were catching up a little bit, talking a little bit about how social media is going to be changing. Um, it will be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what TikTok, what happens with that, and then I didn't even think about what that's going to do to people's attention span. You brought that up, you know, before. I didn't even think about that. But that's a very interesting thing to actually, for us especially, that plays a part in our livelihood. But, even for the average person who's used to just scrolling on TikTok, there's going to be some level of like adaptation time they'll have to go through if TikTok goes away. But, it's funny that we even live in a world that these are things that we debate about, like that, you know.
Human human attention span.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I even
So
think about, like, I wonder what the effect has been on, like, movies and movie sales since things like TikTok and Instagram Reels have come out, because in my mind, I'm like, "Dude, like, I don't know about you, but, like, how often do you sit down and watch, like, a 2.5-hour movie?"
not often.
Not often, and I was only thinking about it because yesterday was Memorial Day, and I was like, "Dude, I wanna watch some patriotic shit," and I was like, "You know what?" I was like, "I've never seen Saving Private Ryan," and I was like, "'Kay," so I was, like, sitting down, and, like, it was already, like, 7 o'clock, and I go to look up, like, Saving Private Ryan on Amazon, it's, like, 2 hours and 45 minutes, and I was like, "Okay, maybe, like, let's watch Patriot," and I go to look up to watch some
It's
Patriot, it's
not any better.
like 2 hours and 55 minutes. I was like, "Guess I'm watching Saving Private Ryan." And
Yeah.
even that, like, I'm wondering, like, the evolution of that, like, what, 1998, and, like, sitting down and great movie, and I'm like, "Yeah," and you're feeling the American as fuck, but it's like, I was literally thought I was like 2 hours and 40 minutes now is like a week. That's like
Mhm.
a
That's a good point.
so it's like, I wonder how that's even evolved with movies, like, and for me now, I'm like, for me to go sit and use 2 hours of my life now, I'm like, this better be a freaking Oscar winner movie, which rare now because Hollywood's ass.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I was
and
just thinking about it, I was like, "That's crazy."
That's a valid point. But like movies are so, and this is completely off topic discussion, but it's fun. Movies are so, like Netflix, how many movies do they make in a year's time?
Mm.
Amazon, how many movies did they make in a year's time? So it's like at a certain point, they're just making shit to make it. And as long as they probably have some certain number, like an hour, 45 minutes seems to be the length of a movie you know, that they make on average.
Mm.
So they probably know like what that length of time is that will people can kind of grab their attention long enough. But movies are so the average movie right now is like it wouldn't have even been thought of. Like they wouldn't have even contemplated making that 10 years ago. The average movie now because they're just so watered down. They're
So
just bad.
bad, they're not about anything.
Yeah.
Even, like, and I was thinking about it because I've been on this thing where I've probably gone a year or more without sitting down and watching a movie, and in the past, like, week, I think I've watched, like, 3 just from a turn of events, and I watched that movie, the new one that's came out, Civil War,
Hmm. Yeah. Was it good?
and dude, no.
Oh, jeez.
And I sat down and watched it because I was like, "You know what? This might be" like I said, like,
Yeah.
the same thing, like Braveheart, like, you sit down, you're like, "I want something that's gonna, and I sat there, and my guy had seen it in the movie theater, my boy had seen it in the movie theater, and he's like, "Oh, we should watch it. It's pretty crazy, but, like, we should watch it," and, like, I had a friend from Utah in town, so we sat and we're watching it, and I'm like, "This is garbage," and I'm asking him, I was like, "Dude, wait, why is there a war going on?" He's like, "Well, they want you to put that together. They want you to have to," and I'm like, "Okay, wait, why are they trying to get the president?" Well, like, I'm like, there's no backstory, there's nothing. And he's like, "They
Yeah.
want you to figure it out." I'm like,
Yeah.
"What the hell kind of thing is this where I'm gonna pay to watch a
I,
movie where I have to put the plot together
I
in
got to
my"
make up the movie.
Yeah, I got it's like a fucking ad lib of a movie where I gotta insert here.
Mm.
They clearly had a great budget, but it was just like they just put all the money into, like, these, like, bomb scenes and flashbacks, and there's no
Yeah.
plot, written super poorly, which I was super upset about because the guy who plays the president they show in the beginning, it's like Ron Swanson
Yeah.
of Parks and Rec,
Yeah.
and, like, I'm sure you're like me, we're like, we fucking love Ron Swanson, like, we are Ron Swanson, but it was just like, yeah, I was like, "Oh, man," but yeah, so I watched Saving Private Ryan, and I was like, "Yeah, I'd sit down for 3 hours for this movie," but other than that, yeah, there's nothing these days that is worth paying $20 to go sit there and watch.
Yeah. Very little. Most
Like,
definitely.
I can't think of the last movie I've saw where I'm like, "That was crazy."
Yeah.
Great movie.
Um, the Tom Cruise movie.
Top Gun?
Yeah, that was good.
It
I will
was a
That was solid, but that's 2 years old at this point, isn't it? Something like
years
that.
old, it's based off a movie that's, 20, 30 years old, so it's like
Exactly.
I'm glad they use the same maybe that's like the trick if you use the same cast because I feel like anything new they've redone, I'm like, "Why did you touch it? Leave it alone."
Yeah, yeah. You just
It
ruined
I
it.
like we most of, like, us logical thinking people have accepted that Hollywood's shit right now and that they're not gonna put anything good out that we wanna watch, so, like, just don't like, I'm just not gonna, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Sit home and rewatch Grey's
not
Anatomy
gonna
for I'm not going out to the movie. You know what
that's
I mean?
funny.
But
But, alright, we're gonna answer some questions. So, here's the way this rolls. I haven't done one of these in probably 6 months, so I'm kinda excited about it. I'll ask a question. I'll let you hit this first one first, and then we'll just, like, bounce back and forth, see what we come up with.
awesome, love it.
Easy enough? Alright, a lot of context on this first one. I wanna build mass/slash definition. I also recognize the importance of cardio for not only my health, but I enjoy being able to run around with my kids. What would be an optimal routine to build mass/slash definition and be able to continue cardio, or are they opposing to one another? I'm kind of lost with all the info available. Aren't we all?
Aw yeah, I mean, there's so much just knowledge in the world right now.
Yeah.
Uh, I think cardio is great, especially if you wanna run out with your kids, like, I think people underestimate the amount that humans ourselves are supposed to be active. Like, if you're considering, like, 10,000 steps and, like, you're gonna go in your calorie thing and enter that you're highly active 'cause you hit 10,000 steps. And in my mind, I'm like, we're meant to be active, we're meant to be on our feet. If you are actually someone who wants to grow, tracking protein and tracking your macros in general to make sure you're hitting the number, because as much as we also underestimate how active we're just supposed to be on a day-to-day basis outside of our exercise, you also, as humans, myself included, we don't have as good of a gauge on how much we're eating as we think. We never do. Like, I'm sure you, as well as me, tracking for years. I'm not a mathematician with it. I'm not eyeballing a cup of rice ever. So, just a combination of being able to track your macros and make sure you're hitting high enough protein, because if you're hitting like 300 carbs and then you're active with your kids and you're also hitting 250 grams of protein and you're keeping your, fats healthy and low, running around with the kids is not going to do it. If you're trying to do an hour of cardio a day, that's something I would probably have to moderate. Like, I consider into my calorie intake my day-to-day activity. So I'm someone for a living. I move weights for other people, but most of the time I'm standing in place. I'm moving from one part of the gym to the other.
Right.
So that in itself is not going to do it. But even when I started 75 hard, I had a good amount of calorie intake doing 2 a days. I was dropping muscle really fast and I had to adjust. So also being able to adjust and pay attention to your macros helps you, because if you're able to do check-ins and you're noticing, hey, like I'm not gaining the way I should, it lets you be able to increase that. And it takes kind of the fear and guesswork out of it, where instead of just being like, am I doing this correctly? You're like, yeah, I'm not gaining the way I want to. Let me increase my, protein by 10 grams, carbs by, 20 grams to keep everything else the same. And it just takes the guesswork out of it. But everyone's different. And the way my metabolism works, if I have a freaking cookie, I'm up 2 pounds, whereas someone else can get away with it. So it kind of goes case by case. You might agree, bro.
Yeah. No, it definitely is case by case. I'm curious, what have you found to be a good and optimal protein intake for mass gain? Protein and carb intake. I think the combination of carbs and fats is what you really want to watch, and you hit on that. But you want to make sure that your carbs aren't too high and your fats aren't also too high whenever you're trying to put on weight, right? Because you, odds are you're going to put on some fat, and that's fine. What you want to do is mitigate as much fat as possible. That's the goal. And that's what I see about this question is I see mass slash definition. I see those two as opposing things.
Yeah, because like
So
I'm sure you know this, like when it says lean bulk, it's
yeah,
like you're gonna have to really play with it.
yeah,
It's like inchworm type stuff when it comes to a lean bulk,
yep.
because
So
like, they're kind of almost opposing.
they are. And that's why in my mind, when I see those two things, I'm like, well, really is what you're looking for is two different things. But I'm gonna go ahead and pretend like what you're saying is I want more mass so that you see more muscle,
Mhm.
is what I kind of visualize in my mind. So, what have you found to be a good like protein intake relative to body weight, and then a good carb intake on top of that relative to body weight when it comes to putting on mass?
Well, there's always that, kind of without knowing the person's actual calorie expenditure and their, metabolic rate, of being able to say, okay, well, what is your goal weight? And then depending on how athletic you are, multiply that times 1 to 2.
Yeah,
Most people, I'd say 1.5. Honestly, the times one thing, like if you want to be 200 pounds, eating 200 grams of protein, yeah, but 1 to 2, depending on how athletic they are.
1 to 2
Um,
grams of protein per pound
yeah,
of body weight.
honestly, with carbs and fats, I think people don't realize, like, essentially, as long as you're hitting your protein, you can have a preference.
Right.
I honestly, for most people, say go lower fats just because there's less amount of healthy fats than you probably think. And like, if you're having high fat foods, it's often going to be bad foods, unless you're just, having all meat, which, but I don't think there's one set carb number and one set fat number. I always say try to go for high protein, moderate carb, low fat, only because also fats have higher calories than carbs. So you can have more carbs and not skyrocket your calorie intake, as opposed to having higher fats. You're going to be having double the amount of calories per gram. They're, not necessarily interchangeable, as whereas protein and carbs are interchangeable with their calorie intake. But I mean, a good way for them to find out would say go to a website like tde.calculator.net, find out your metabolic rate. Once you're hitting your protein, everything else, like I said, it's gonna be interchangeable, but go moderate. But a website like that will tell you, because I don't ever like to give out a broad number of this is how
Mhm.
much protein you should eat, because how much protein a 140-pound woman should eat is not the amount of protein that a 6'4" guy who wants to be shredded should eat. But Another thing I would put in is a lot of people think they need to build to reveal muscle, when in reality, if he's already a guy or if he's already someone that's 200 pounds
Mhm,
and just wants to look buff, he could actually probably take some fat off, and even if the scale drops a little bit, you'll actually look bigger.
mhm,
I'm sure it's the same way. There's times where,
true,
like, I cut fat, I look fucking bigger just for the fact that I've revealed the muscle. So
mm,
also decide if you actually need to build muscle or do you need to reveal muscle? Because revealing the muscle actually is gonna imply that you actually might wanna do a little bit of a cut,
mm,
and most people actually bulk too soon, and they already have a high body fat, and you're bulking on top of body fat. You're not gonna see the muscle for a long, long time if you do
mhm.
that.
No,
So,
that's a real good point. Real good point. Do you need to bulk or do you need to reveal? And I have had people say that to me whenever I've actually leaned down a little bit. They'll say, "You look bigger."
look big. Yeah, just 'cause you
Right,
freaking like, yeah, your muscles are popping and stuff, like,
right.
I think if you I always say try to cut down as much as possible before you start to build, especially because if you don't have a good handle on your eating and you don't have a good handle on tracking X, Y, and Z, and you're kind of like this. You ever had like clients who are like, I just want to bulk, and you know damn well it's because they just don't have the discipline to want to cut, and like
Yeah,
they've cut. Like, oh, I
yeah.
think I'm ready for a bulk. So I would always say like cut first. If you're someone who's like 140-pound guy though, who
Mhm,
you're like some muscle, that's a different, of
mhm,
course. And it's time to
definitely.
some fucking food.
Well, and I'd say since we're in the summer, well, that's when we're recording this. It's also not as fun to bulk in the summer. So for the summertime, focus maybe on staying the
And also
same, maybe leaning down a little bit.
start tracking. Even if you're not doing anything, you're not even adjusting it, start tracking because you might be under eating. He might be
Yeah,
under eating and not even need to go into a bulk. He might be under his maintenance calories.
yeah.
And like
True.
metabolism might need to get like kick
Kickstart.
yeah.
Hmm. Very true. So I'll go at this from a programming standpoint, since we already hit the nutrition part. From a programming standpoint, when I think of putting m- bulking together and cardio together, yes, they are opposing things, but you can do them together. The
Yeah.
question is, how much are you willing to give up on the cardio side to be able to get the bulk side, right?
Yes.
You can't maximize both. You can't be a marathoner and a power lifter at the same time. It's
Yeah.
impossible, right? You can, but you're not going to be great at either one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Master or the what's it called? A master
master,
trade of all. Yeah.
master, no, exactly. So in my mind, if you want to be able to keep your, when I hear cardio, I think most people just assume that it only means steady state. But
Mhm.
there's different ways that you can get cardio in, right? Like you can do a metabolic resistance training kind of session where you use resistance to actually do your quote cardio, but you do it in a high intensity manner, in which case you might actually activate some muscle growth to some degree. It's not going to be gigantic, but you might actually do that. So when I think about from a programming standpoint, I think about how do you, you know, if you want mostly mass, you have to focus your programming around that and then build cardio on top of it, is the way that I look at it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
want to weight train at least 3 days a week, at least 3 days a week. And you want to get, I don't know, I don't, to be completely precise, but I would say about 15 sets per muscle group. Does that sound about right in a week's time?
Uh I think the number varies, like, I've done research on a lot of it, and I've seen anywhere between, like, 10 to 15 per muscle group. I think if you're someone it depends on how many days a week you're going,
True. Yeah,
you
true.
know?
So we'll say 12 to 15 sets per muscle group within a week's time. And that can be within a day or that can be spread out through a week. So I think that's another fallacy that people don't understand. You don't have to do back day and then chest day and then shoulder day. That's how most people do it. But you can have back and shoulder day here and then on Thursday have back and chest day here and then chest and I don't know, hamstring day here and then quad and you see what I'm saying? So you can basically
Yeah.
take that and disperse that
It
volume
doesn't have
out.
to be, like, a push-pull day, it doesn't have to, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So decide what works for you as far as the distribution goes. But at least 3 days a week of training, 12 to 15 sets per muscle group. And each set, 6 to 12, 6 to 15 reps. And the goal in my mind is most of your sets should be close to failure.
Yeah, and that's another thing I was gonna say. I think people underestimate the importance of your quality of sets, your quality of workout. I actually had a client ask me, this past week, he was like, "Does it make a difference if I work out, in the afternoon and the morning?" And I said, "Based on, like, you talking about data and muscle growth? No." I said, "But your quality of workout will matter. If if I worked out at 2 AM, am I having the same workout if I like, half asleep if I did at 10 AM? No. So, therefore, what am I gonna have better results if I'm working out at 10 AM? Not because where the sun is in the sky, but because where I'm able to exert and continue progressive overload and get my 100%. So 100%, like even if you're doing, that's like the same way that some people work out and probably do a 6 day split all the time and they never look any different. Versus guys who can go 4 or 5 days and have crazy results just based on, progressive overload, going close to
Output.
failure, output, 100%.
Yep. And then the other part of that is the cardio part. So if you want cardio because it's healthy for you and because you want to be able to play and run around with your kids, that's great. You can do some sort of moderate level cardio, or you can do high intensity training of some sort. The problem with like long term steady state cardio is it's muscle wasting. And most people think of like running.
I think I misunderstood what you said the first time. I thought he was asking if he was gonna do too much cardio by running around with his kids. I was
Oh,
like, I was like, "Bro, you're good. I
no, yeah,
promise."
yeah, you're in good shape. But I think you know, people want to go out when they want to run miles and also get in the gym, lift weights and bulk. But those are, like I said, two opposing things because running miles is muscle wasting. The activity itself is a muscle wasting type of activity. So it's hard to go out and run miles and to be able to bulk. So if you're going to add some sort of cardio element to your training, you can, like I said, do some sort of high intensity resistance training a couple of days a week. It can be just 15 to 20 minutes, or you can do some sort of high intensity sprint interval training, or you can just go out and do some sort of long distance hike or walk.
Can't, dude. I've cut like 20% body fat just walking.
Yep.
I don't do like high intensity like at a long distance running. After I think of life in sports, my body hates it. Like my shins. I did last time I did long distance running, dude. I had to train sitting down for like a week. My like
Mm,
I don't, you know what I mean.
yeah, it's not a good
But
feeling.
people underestimate, I think, this steady state walking
Hmm.
and like the difference between this walking versus like actually just walking and you want to increase your freaking resistance. Like today, I'm doing my outdoor cardio with a weighted vest.
Yeah.
I'm
Put a
still
vest on, put a ruck
put
on.
put a ruck on, put a vest on. But also, I think people are like, there's ways to adjust. Like, you don't have to do nothing. You can maybe when you're trying to cut, you're doing 45 to an hour, and when you're, trying to build, you're just doing 20 minutes.
Hmm.
Not doing a lot, but you're doing consistently. There's ways to do it. I did like research into it my last cut, and I was like, okay, I want to know like have people done research into which cardio has led to the most muscle atrophy versus being able to stay, keep the most muscle maintenance and having cardio. And they were saying that cardio that replicates resistance training has had better results with muscle maintenance when you're combining it with your training as opposed to just doing like marathon style training.
Yep.
So I started doing like bike with my feet only, stairmaster. Even I scaled back from doing like incline treadmill, which if you know is like bodybuilder,
It's like
guru
a staple.
staple. So I started like, all right, I'm only doing things that like, cardio that tries to replicate on top of walking. So that was something I actually did research into. And they were saying like do cardio that replicates resistance training for best muscle maintenance. So
There
that's
you go.
super interesting.
Yep. Very good. All right. Well, I think we got some good stuff in there. Most definitely. Next question. I travel and my handwriting's terrible. I wrote these questions down. I should not have done that.
I'm
I
like, dude,
tra-
I guarantee it's better than mine, bro.
Dude, I'm going, what is that word? I travel and go out to eat a lot for work. It can be hard to choose something good to eat. And in those situations, what do you recommend to help make better choices? So, to help make better choices while traveling for work and while going out to eat for work.
Okay. You want to go first? You want me to go first?
Let me see. I'll hit it. So, I'm going to hit this from a different angle, actually, instead of food, because I'll let you.
I don't think it's a food problem. I don't think it's a menu. I'll let you go.
So when a lot of, especially business people, go out to eat, what they stack on top of it a lot of times is alcohol. And that's when you combine junk food with alcohol, that is just a terrible combination for trying to maintain any kind of good physique and especially lose body fat. So one of the reasons people have a hard time is because everyone else is around them is also drinking alcohol, so they feel the need, the pressure to have some sort of alcoholic beverage. So a trick that you can do is just order a seltzer water with a lemon or a lime, and it looks sparkly and it's got a lime on it, so people assume it's some sort of sparkly alcoholic drink. So that way you look like you fit in. You look, you're not the outcast, but you're also not going against your goals. And your goals being, I'm assuming, either losing weight or staying fit and healthy to some degree. So watch out stacking alcohol and drinks when you're going out to eat. And like I said, traveling for business and going out to eat for business, usually those things equal stacking alcohol on top of that. So that's just a little trick that you can do to mitigate that part of it.
Mm. Um, to touch on the alcohol part, if it is an alcohol thing, which, like you said, it very well could be. I mean, for me, when I first stopped drinking, like I just started ordering a Diet Coke. Like I'd be out at the club and I'd have a Diet Coke, and like I think a good thing different. I think it sounds like a lot of mental because if it is an alcohol thing, are you uncomfortable not drinking when you're out? Do you feel like it's disrespectful? Because in my mind, I mean, tell me if you disagree. A lot of the people I know that are, high achievers and, people who are in business, they're gonna respect that more. They're gonna respect the hell out of that actually. Being able
Yeah.
to be like, I'm not drinking right now, or this and that. Discipline equals respect. Like when I see someone who is able to say no and stand strong in that, even if I don't agree with it, even if I don't feel the same way myself, I'm like, but I respect it.
Yeah.
So, and then you want to be doing business people that can't respect you being disciplined in your path. There's just a lot of things that my mind would go for in that. But if it's a food thing, I just think in 2024, it's hard to be at a place where they don't have chicken or steak or some type of seafood option. And I think for me used to be the bitch voice in my head would be like, "Oh, here's your opportunity to eat like shit." And like it's like if you were going on a 2-day vacation, you'd be like the moment you get to the airport, you're like, "Where's Chick?" Like you're
Boom.
like in that 48 hours, you're like, "Hell yeah." And you're gonna squeeze as much crap as you can in that 48 hours. And you'll go back, but you're on vacation. And it could also be a thing where subconsciously that you're going out and you have an excuse because it's for business, and therefore when you get there, you're also ordering the appetizer. You're also not you're seeing the better option on the menu, and you're still going for the other thing. So, because like I said, there's few places unless they're taking you to a fast food restaurant for a business dinner. There's few places that you're going that don't have that healthy option. And I think the harder part, and it's something I really struggled with, is seeing the thing you should order and still ordering the other thing.
Mm.
So, planning ahead, know where you're going to eat. Most places, 90% of places have a menu online today. Pick what you're going to eat and just stick to it. Don't even look at the menu because it most likely more than anything is a discipline thing where you should eat and you can't do it. And I've been there. Or you're taking it as like it's a business dinner and you're going to order the appetizer, the beer, the entree, and having a bite of their dessert, like whatever. So it's probably more than anything else is a discipline issue. Same thing if you're traveling. Or do you know where you're going ahead of time? Is there a way you can, prepare ahead of time? Being prepared has saved me so much time and not failing my food because I'm a fat, fat, fat person on the inside. Like I don't let that person eat most of the time, but in reality, it's being like I know what I'm gonna order and just don't even look at the menu. And eventually, it'll just become a pattern where you start to just be prepared. And if you are going to like a family dinner or something like that, like practice portion control. It sounds like it's more than anything, it's probably a lot of mental and a lot of choices. A lot of, like, hard choices to make, and it's hard in the beginning, like, I've struggled I still struggle with that where I'm like, "You don't need it," like, you don't need an appetizer, and if you did have a drink, you don't need to get, like, 3.
Mm.
I mean, so it's like but I can empathize it with so much because that's something I really struggled with. I used to be like, "Yeah, when I'm on vacation mode, I'm on vacation mode, I'm going balls deep." "Oh, it's dinner time." Oh, every reason getting the appetizers, this and that, like the snacking, the chips, the guac, all like removing stuff, and then eventually it gets easier. Like you start to flex that muscle, it gets easier. You start to get proud of yourself, and then that feeling overrides all the other crap, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm that guy, I'm
Mm,
that girl. You know what I mean,
yep. No, you make a good point. The loop is important because we all have the habit of ordering the thing that we order, right? You go out to eat, you look for the same sort of things whenever
yeah,
you go out to eat. So if you can understand that part of it is just a habit loop that you're used to doing. So even if you go in with a plan and like you said, you pick up the menu, immediately your eyes are going to start looking at the other things that you would normally order and your brain starts to fight. And that fight is the struggle, right? Where your brain's like, "Oh man, that looks good. That looks good. Oh,
yeah, taking photos. Oh
oh
yeah,
yeah, you know you
oh,
like that, right? You know that that's good." So setting the menu aside, slowly breaking that loop, just one decision at a time. And like you said, eventually you start a new loop. You start a new
or
loop.
if it's someone who has a coach or has access to a coach, ask your coach. I've had my clients send me like, "Hey, I'm going here for dinner." Your coach is not going to be mad. I promise. Like, or whoever you ask, even if it's someone that's not your coach, they're not going to be. They're going to be like, "Heck yeah, dude! Like, go for it." Or there's another way you can eat before you go out to dinner. Like, have, like, your at least your protein, like, hey, your protein before you go out, and then if you wanna order, like, something smaller, but it's a lot harder for me to stay on track when I'm out at a restaurant that has all my favorite bad foods, and I'm starving, and you're just like, "Fuck it," and how many times do you say, "Fuck it?" Like, eventually, but, like I said, if you're going out to dinner and ordering mozzarella sticks, the business meeting is not the problem. Like, having to go to a business dinner that's not your meal prep is not the problem. You ordering mozzarella sticks and then a cheeseburger with fries is the problem. So it's like the choice is the problem.
Hmm. Yeah, most definitely. The last thing that I'll say is the thing that I normally point out. So one of my clients and one of my really good friends as well. She texted me a while back and she's like, "Oh, I'm going to Mexican with a bunch of my friends and I'm really, really anxious about going." I'm like, "It's going to be okay. You'll pick something good. What's going on?" "Well, I just want to make sure that cuz Mexican food, it's layered in fat, like, guacamole and sour cream and cheese and
Yeah.
so on and so forth. So it's very easy to get out of hand." And I just said, "Hey, just focus on not layering fats."
Like, do they have fajitas?
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
something
exactly.
basic. Just
Yeah.
don't go layering fats on top of each other. If you get fajitas, don't put sour cream, guacamole, and cheese all on the fajita, or don't get something that has all of those things.
I
Yeah.
was like, I'm craving fajitas. Yeah, dude, 100%. I think that's what it is. Especially like you're right. I think a lot of foods are like layered foods. Like a burger in itself is like probably moderately more fat than or moderate to highly more fat than we would want, which is you could survive. You take the bread off, boom, you're good to go. But you had some cheese, some bacon on that shit. Like, is that an American thing? We just love layering stuff,
Yeah.
bro.
Yes.
I'm like, yeah. But there's few places I think today that you could go and not find something to eat. Like you couldn't go to a Mexican place, order, fajitas. You could go to a steakhouse and have steak and broccoli. You could go to even an Italian place and find salmon or fish. Like there's few places, so I think it's just getting used to it. It's really is a habit change. You're out to a restaurant and you're paying for food, and you're still not going to order the thing you really want, and that is hard. That's hard to
Hmm.
do. It's hard to pay for the thing that you really not even think you actually want. But just building that habit of being, I think it's probably it took me the longest to do, but is helped me the most is being able to be on vacation or go out to a meal and stay on track and pick good options because that used to be my time where I was like, "Oh, these are my free meals until I'm back." Like, like we're good, we're on vacation, we're out to dinner. And being able to do that has made all the world of difference. Is being able to make good choices when I'm out and just that just takes time and it takes flexing the muscle and you won't be able to do it until you keep it's like push-ups or pull-ups or anything else. You have to keep flexing the muscle of picking the thing you should eat and not the thing you want to eat. It just takes time.
That's good. Plan, flex that muscle.
Oh yeah.
All right. Last question. This one is relevant to both of us. What are the key differences between online and in-person personal training?
Okay. I mean, outside of the obvious or one's remote and one
One's online and one's in
I'm
person.
like,
Well, one's online and
oh,
one's in person. Oh, all right. Good question.
the key differences, I would say, yeah. one, you're not with your coach in person. I think it varies if you're buying like a PDF or versus if you're doing one-on-one coaching with someone
Mm,
where they're actually modifying and like you either have an app or they're texting it to you and then you're doing some sort of check-in virtually. Like I used to do Zooms and now a lot of times like it's like depending if it's like my certain like level of clients, we're doing like FaceTimes and they have access to me. And then we program weekly, we adjust weekly based on that. They, get access to I used to give full access to my phone, now I try to keep it less and more just, via like either a WhatsApp or through my training app just because I need some type of separation because my phone like I have to live on D&D pretty much now. But yeah, you can do it anywhere. You can do it at home, you can do it any type of gym, and you pretty much are just contacting your coach over the phone. But did I cover that part at least? But versus in person where you're seeing your coach for an hour to however many times a week. Also, I would say I'll switch it and go from a coaching perspective side. For me, I think in-person training is a lot more intimate. It's a lot more I think you can have connection with remote clients and you can have that level of closeness, but for me personally, I think there's nothing that beats in person when it comes to that. Like, you're in each other's lives, you're staple in each other's lives, like, you guys are you maybe not say friends, but you guys know a lot. I know too much about my
I
in-person
know.
clients.
Yeah.
And I that's why I love it. I was honestly even that's why even kind of converting more to hybrid, I think it's one of the harder things because I love in person. I love people.
Mm.
And I think getting to work more I think there's nothing that changes getting to work with people in person and kind of get to interact in their lives and see them a few times a week. So that's from a trainer side of it. A little bit different.
Yeah, that's where I was gonna go. That was the spin I was gonna put on it is and I would say from a client perspective as well, you know, from a client perspective, when you're with a coach, they can touch you and put you in a way, not in a very politically correct way. Thank you very much.
Oh, fuck
But
that. Bending you over.
bend over. Bend over and touch your toes, damn it.
Bend over, touch top of the squat, bitch.
This just got weird real quick. But they
Yeah,
can put you
so we put you in positioning.
yeah, so they can
Yeah,
put
just
you
form correction. We're correcting form. We're
yeah,
hands-on. Yeah.
they can put you in position. They can literally change, so from that perspective, it's just way above beyond being able like being online. Being online super convenient. It's super easy. And like you said, it's if are you getting a program or are you getting a coach
Yeah,
online? And
yeah.
there's two
They're
different things.
very different. Very different.
If you're just getting a program, then it's probably going to be something you do for some period of time and then you'll stop
Mhm.
because people get bored and that's what they do and they want something new. So, but if you have a coach, then like you said, exactly what you do, they'll change your program depending on how good they are. They'll change your
Yeah.
program regularly, weekly, or at least monthly. They'll stay in touch with you. They'll make sure you're tracking your goals and tracking your, macros or doing whatever else you're doing with them. So it's very convenient online, but you don't have the you don't get all the endorphins and everything that you get being in person with somebody. When you're in person with somebody, there's just a different level of, like you said, connection. You play off of each other's feelings and emotions. You have more of a connection. You get to, like I said, you get to bond in a different way that you just don't get to bond online. So
Also,
it's,
most people who need a trainer don't necessarily love going to the gym.
hmm,
They might love it eventually, but in the beginning, it's something they might be uncomfortable with. Might just be something they straight up just don't want to do, and they need someone to kind of have them accountable. So I think if you're someone who needs accountability and you don't like going to the gym, having a program that you can or a phone thing that you can kind of click and put away is hard. Also, going to the gym if you're uncomfortable is hard, and going with a in-person trainer, you also you have someone who's waiting for you, who's gonna be on your ass. But on top of that, you have someone who almost makes it the hour enjoyable. Like most of my clients, like we're like laughing half the hour. And I think for someone who hates the gym or has gym anxiety, it makes it all the more easier to just start to get comfortable with it when you're, having someone that you feel comfortable with. And if you don't feel comfortable with your trainer, you're probably not going to stay with them for that long anyways.
yeah, not the right person for you. But yeah, I mean,
Put some more hands on. So
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's just nothing. I think for somebody who wants exercise specific, like if that's your goal, you just want to get in the gym and you want to figure out how to train and exercise better. Like hiring an in-person coach is just going to be the most effective way to do that. And then the second best way, if you want I would say if you want an overall experience that's going to be better, I think online is actually better overall because from a coach perspective, it's easier to do the nutrition and to track all of that online than in person. In person, it's hard to have that conversation with somebody while you're with them, you know, even during their training session. And it's hard to track that because to take more time outside of the training session to be able to do a FaceTime with them to talk about their nutrition and things, that's more time that you're taking, which if they're paying for it, great. But, you know, it's different. Whereas online, there's just so many tools that you can use to cover a lot more bases. So I think from a general overall standpoint, I feel like online actually has more advantages, but from a strictly I want to be held accountable to
Agree.
train,
Yeah.
you see what I'm saying? Get
Yeah,
input.
I'd also say for online, you it's gonna be a lot more affordable to have a plan set out for you that's 3, 4, 5 days a week, whereas few people in today's economy can afford to see a trainer 5 days a week.
Yep.
So, but I recommend anyone, like, like, trainers included, I think everyone should hire a coach at least once, even if you think you're, like, the baddest mamma jamma on the planet, because even going from being an athlete to trainer, I'm like, "Oh, I don't know shit." And there's like times where we're always learning from each other, whether it's in business, or through, different exercise, like I have different certs than other trainers have.
Hmm.
And there might be something that they know, like we've all been
Even the
learning
way you cue, like the way you
what you
cue.
do. Like there's just different things that everyone knows. And I think no matter how experienced you are, I think it's great to always try to seek out a coach. The best people in the world have coaches. So I think everyone should have a coach at least, once in their life.
Completely agree.
Yes, sir.
All right. Good stuff, sister. I think those were good questions. And I'd say we get pretty damn good answers.
Dude, I've never felt smarter, bro. I love it. No, I
Hey,
always last
look
with
who
you.
you're talking with, though. It's a
Dude,
low barrier.
I'm just mad I didn't wear my hat. We would have been matching. I should
I'll
check.
let you know next time.
Next time we gotta color coordinate, brother. We
We'll figure it out. Good stuff, sister. I appreciate you.
all right, bro. It's always a blast. I appreciate you having me, man.
Till next time.
Yes, sir.